If you're new. On this channel, I take sidereal astrology and I decode it into our current timeline into astrotheology. So basically what I'm doing is showing the esoteric language that's being portrayed to us in everyday news articles and showing how this relates to the sky and how there's repetitive patterns. This video I want to discuss about Jesus's birthday that I found out from a famous astrologer that worked with the FBI, and how his name all ties into Moby Dick and how that ties into Trump. And this all goes back to whales. And I'm also going to tell you how Tiger Woods ties into all of this. So it's quite interesting. And of course, we have Elvis as well. So if you haven't watched any of my last few videos, I would recommend that you do that. And that will get you up to date on the whole tree of life and how Elvis and Trump and Aretha Franklin, Babe Ruth, how they're all tying into Coca-Cola and the meaning of Coca-Cola, and how this all ties into our current timeline and the tree of life. Somebody sent me this whale story that happened on June 11th, a little while back, about a man being swallowed by a humpback whale. And this kind of mirrors the Moby Dick story. So he says, all of a sudden I saw a light and white water everywhere, and all of a sudden I was thrown from its mouth. The last thing I saw was the tail going down, okay, on the surface. So they're referencing Moby Dick's tail. And the reason that is so important is because that's on the elliptical where the planets actually go, and it would be considered Pisces. But it's actually, when you look at the sky, it's on the tail of the whale. Now, if you'd watch some of my old videos, this picture, it looks like Trump or Lincoln with the eye of the storm being the eye of the whale and the spear, and half the body's ascending and half isn't. And this was on the cover of one of the Moby Dick novels. It's hard to find that picture again now. But this all ties into the Mobius strip that the 17th letter posted when he posted a post about the flow state. It was the Mobius strip. And the Mobius strip is really, it has to do with jumping timelines, because you go from one side of the ribbon to the other side, or the veil, you go through it. Okay, and this is what this is all about, is us jumping into another reality if you can see this as an illusion. And I'm going to show you all through this video how all the news is just constantly mirroring this event. This is not a modern day phenomenon, the Mobius strip. This is in ancient times. There's this mosaic here, a Roman mosaic with it has the zodiac, and you can see one side of it is like twisted, and that is the Mobius strip. You have to like go on the inside of the ribbon, and then you end up being on the outside. So it's like you go through the veil. And this actual Roman god, sometimes they have him down as Ion, but a lot of times they have him down as Uranus. And Uranus is really important. This is the heaven planet, and I'm going to go into the Uranus-Jupiter conjunctions and how this relates to Jesus' birthday. This poem really makes me believe that Elvis had a knowledge of his role in this. So this is one of his last poems. With no regrets and peace of mind, I walk away and left behind a fate that I could not control. I played the hand that I was told. It came to be more than I could bear. Everyone around me was unaware. What I chose you may not understand. Please forgive me, I'm just a man. I have no regrets. I have memories. The life I led, in a lot of ways, were good to me, but a life without love, I couldn't go on, and I knew I would have to keep singing a song. A different man I came to be. It was then I found serenity. I did it my way. Okay, so it's like he's saying that he played, like he was playing a role, and he had, he chose this role, and nobody could be aware of it. So that's why I think, the symbolism is so crazy with him, with like his, his stables names, the house, the rising sun, the whole Aztec sun that he wore in his last concert, the Coca-Cola on his piano, the songs, Take My Hand, Precious Lord, that Aretha Franklin sang and Beyonce sang at the Grammys. It's like, maybe they're a soul that comes into this realm, and you're like, okay, you're going to play this part, and they get to live the life, but then there's a catch to it. They have to be the character, right? So I'm just wondering if that's really what goes down with these ascended souls. I mentioned before there's a documentary called The King, where they go around, they drive across the United States with different people, and they reminisce about Elvis. But the producer of that documentary had mentioned that Elvis had done this thing when he was up on stage, and he, used his microphone as a harpoon and says, Moby Dick. And I thought, my God, he's Captain Arab. Okay, um, so Elvis kind of does this thing where he's like referencing Moby Dick. And, this is important because Moby Dick is Cetus the whale. It's Pisces and Aries in the sky. It's the hand of God when it's in Aries, and then it's the tail in Pisces. And this is really important because they've tied Trump all into Moby Dick as well. So here in the news, they're saying, op-ed, want to better understand the Trump presidency? Give Moby Dick another read. And this is how the game works. They have to tell you, and it's up to you to awaken to this information. So here they're saying Trump's Moby Dick debate. So there was a debate, regarding, I don't know, some debate, and they call it the Moby Dick debate. The border wall is Trump's white whale. I guess there's a singer named Moby, and this is kind of disgusting. They say about touching Trump with his dick because he was sad about 9/11. So see how they're creating like Moby with dick. So it's just a play on words. But this is like in the news. It's like, oh my God. It's like it's so in our faces. Once you understand what they're referencing to, they're referencing to what Moby Dick is, and it's really Sleipnir. It's Odin's horse, okay, the 8-legged horse that Odin rides, who is, has to sacrifice himself to the tree of life in Norse mythology. And this is what Moby Dick, Cetus, represents. Now, Odin is also referencing to Santa Claus. So Santa Claus reindeers, his 8 reindeers, also references this Moby Dick, a Cetus whale in the sky. It's all layered mythology that you have to understand. It's all talking about the tree of life. It's always about the tree of life and the 2 paths on the tree of life. So this Moby character wrote a memoir with this, experience that he had. Then it fell apart. And the whole referencing to Dick is because of Osiris's missing piece, right? Because Osiris, Odin, these are all the same being, okay? They're just referencing the one that gets sacrificed to the tree. And you could even go as far as to say Jesus is the same being, okay? They're the ones that teach you how to get to Shambhala, to the higher realm of freedom. So that was all back in 2019. And then he shows up again, this Moby guy, in May 24th, 2021. So he's talking about this reprise with Natalie Portman and Trump's Russia's claims. But it's weird. They're setting up the interview because of COVID, they say, outside in his garden. And of course, he's standing by a tree, like right in the middle of the tree. So then they even have to go back and bring up this whole Russian thing again. Beyond, it's like Russian, Russia blackmailed them more than beyond the P tape. Like they had more than the golden shower. So they are mentioning, it's the tree and the golden showers. It's all the stuff that I've been talking about, and it just keeps showing up in the news, right? It's just freaking crazy how they're always bringing the mythology back into current events. So I found a cartoon with Trump in a tree, like no coincidence. And then he's in a cartoon representing the whale. He's representing Moby Dick because they have a nice job, Ahab, so they've got that in there. And this time they have Trump harpooned with the whale. So it doesn't matter like what role he's presenting. They just want to get the whale into the story, right? It's always just about the whale. What's crazy is there's this famous astrologer who was born in 1927 named Moby Dick Jacobs, but his original first name was named Donald Jean. So Donald Moby Dick, a famous astrologer, he wrote a book regarding Jesus's birthday. But what's interesting about him, he was a very huge Christian, and so he was studying biblical texts. Moby timed the announcement of his professional astrology practice. He got full-page coverage in both Honolulu newspapers and was an instantly respected celebrity. He was an advisor to local and national Democratic candidates, and his geopolitical forecast column was a popular feature locally as well as in a chain mid-Atlantic African-American newspaper. It was there that he predicted the entire Watergate scenario beforehand. His uncanny accuracy got him a place on one of Nixon's lists and an FBI surveillance file. Agents would attend his annual predictions seminars and that he co-hosted with his son, Jay, and for the remainder of his life. But then mysteriously he just died on August 4th, 1981. And he was, a really big sportsman, did surfing and, a real outdoorsman. So like a lifeguard and river buster, scuba diver. Interesting person. But I do believe his date that he predicted that Jesus was born is really relevant because it ties into a Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. Now, you got to remember what Uranus is. Uranus is heaven, and Jupiter would represent Jesus. Okay, so I was tracking before. Kepler had this fascination with Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. But I'm starting to think now that the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction is more relevant than the Saturn-Jupiter. So, yeah, so I want to go into this and see how it's repeating soon. So in astrology talk, this is what it references. The influence of Jupiter-Uranus cycle has to do with freedom of expression on the highest level. Jupiter is one of the legal planets, so they're referring to justice. And Uranus represents the expression of higher creative ideas. When the two of them meld their energies, a need arises for the expression of the new, often of something in a civilization waiting to be born, as walking on the moon embodied the new. Okay, so this is what they're saying, walking on the moon. Okay, so this can be a problem-solving synoid. In government, when a difficulty arises, when a solution is needed, new solutions can be found, drawing on the energies of the synoid. So this is what they're saying, and it's interesting that they reference the moon, because you won't believe when they landed on the moon, guess what was happening? A Jupiter-Uranus conjunction very close to Zavi-Java. That's the ascension star on the left-hand shoulder of Virgo. So on February 23rd, so we get the 322 number, which is skull and bones, in the year 6 BC, there was the beginning of a Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. So Donald Moby Dick Jacob, the astrologer that the FBI worked with, had predicted that Jesus was born on March 1st, 6 BC. So this is just a few days after when the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happened in February. like a week later. And the chart wouldn't go back and mirror the sky. Like I always check to make sure the chart's working. So here I just kind of put in, mix them where they're supposed to be, and I'll show you it in Stellarium. The chart doesn't like going into BC time. So really interesting. It's all in the house of home and family. We have the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. We have the Sun. We have Saturn there. We have Venus there. We have, who else is there? Oh yeah, I just crossed that one out. And the Moon's there. And then I put this purple one in the third house. That's Osiris, and he's next to Chiron. And Mercury's in the third house. This is communication. So Mercury's happy because it's in its own house, and then Chiron's the wound, but Osiris is there, which is like the tree of life. But they're all in Pisces. This is what's fascinating for me. This is all where the whale is, and this is all the house of spirituality. So when he was born, everything was loaded in the house of spirituality. Yeah, nothing. It's just like Pluto is directly across in a square up in Virgo, and in the 10th house, which is legacy, and Mars is there, which is like tons of energy with the occult, like the hidden knowledge. So it's like hidden knowledge, and this is called like a bundle. What's happening here is like everything's loaded on one side, and then you have this opposing planet. Well, there's two opposing, Mars and Pluto. And then Neptune, he's out in Scorpio in the 12th house, like leaving, like it's like, that's the imagination. That's also the storm god, the god of horses. In Scorpio, that's like the doorway out of here, and so is the 12th house, the doorway out of here, right? So it's like death, and it's like imagination and death going out of this realm. So it's kind of like his ascension process. And so, yeah, and then Enki was also in Aries. So, yeah, so really interesting chart to look at it. It's very unusual to be all loaded all in the house of Pisces. I shouldn't say house of Pisces. It's the sign of Pisces. It's in the fourth house, all these planets. And if you look at the sextile, it looks like the alchemic water symbol with the red line shooting right through it, right? It's an upside down triangle. So, yeah, it's all to do with the feminine energies, really, which is the divine Mother Earth, which is what he was teaching about. He was teaching about the energies of, the spirit energies. This is all to do with Mother Earth. I'll just show you here that Uranus and Jupiter are right on the whale, Moby Dick's tail, and Osiris is there as well. So he's the tree of life, right? He would be like Odin. And then Chiron, the wound, is there. Mercury is in Aquarius. Then Jupiter is there with Uranus. You can't see Uranus, but they're in conjunction. And then you have the Sun in conjunction with Saturn, which is huge too, because that takes like kind of like the war of the coldness of Saturn. It gets kind of warmed from the Sun. But Saturn would make you a very responsible person, being right with your Sun, and also somebody that's a bit hard on themselves and also wants to be really responsible. So in Greek mythology, Uranus marries Gaia. Now, Gaia represents like Mother Earth, but so does Circe. Circe represents Mother Earth, and she's on the hand of God with a dark moon, like with the new moon. Now, Persephone is Circe's daughter that ends up getting taken away with Pluto and ends up marrying Pluto, and they rule the underworld, which would be like the inner earth. Okay, so, and then she's close to Shambhala at the skirt of Virgo, and then you have Mars very close to Spica, which is like, Mars being at war with this tree of life, which is the Spica star, which is the Washington Monument. So yeah, it really seems significant that I really do think this astrologer has the birth time correct. Now, of course, Neptune is on the tree of life stars that are in Scorpio. So this is really important as well, because Neptune is also the ruler of the underworld. Okay, so this is very significant that he's in this location. So I found this. It's called Esoteric Rulers and Exaltations of Planets. I didn't know there's another octave to the planet rulers, to the constellations. So Cancer, which is the only constellation ruled by the moon, the upper octave of that is Neptune. So Neptune and the moon have a link. So this is really important. Now Virgo is always ruled by Mercury, but the upper octave of this Virgo is the moon. Okay, now the other ones are kind of similar, like they're not too far off, like Capricorn is still Saturn, Sagittarius is Jupiter, Earth. But anyhow, I just wanted to point out how the moon and Neptune have a relationship. So outside Mar-a-Lago, there is this big Neptune statue. The Trump family's favorite vacation destinations, including Mar-a-Lago, is this vacation spot in Italy that shows this huge statue of Neptune. This is the first thing they tell you where the Trump family loved to go and visit. It's called the Trevi Fountain, and it's in the district in Rome, Italy. So Neptune is the storm god, and he's also the god of horses. He's basically Poseidon. Now, Trump has a statue at Mar-a-Lago, which has horses on it as well. But Neptune is very popular in many locations. The King Neptune statue in Virginia Beach is this massive statue of him. And of course they have to have one in Atlantic City because Poseidon ruled Atlantis. So Atlantic City, of course there's one there. There's one in Naples, Florida. This one was bizarre. There was a 26-foot golden-colored statue in Duluth, Minnesota in 1959 to 1963 when JFK died. And then they tried to remove it, and it caught on fire because they didn't realize it was paper mache, so it kind of ascended. I find that really bizarre. How did they not know what it was made of when they took a blowtorch to it? Then there was this other one. This one is in Caesar Plaza in Las Vegas. There's, of course, a Neptune statue. Of course, a Caesar, Neptune. It's all part of the same story. And then they also have the three fates at the Caesar Plaza. Now, Trump is, I've mentioned this before, he's, associated with Caesar in Rome, and Washington used to be called Rome, so it has to fall. And of course, Caesar had 23 stabs in him, and 2023 is the 60th Jubilee of JFK's death, which is the Black Water Rabbit year that happens every 60 years. There's quite a few references with Trump and Caesar Palace. They were saying, can he survive Caesar Palace? There was a kind of a battle going on with Trump wanting to call some of his casinos the palace, like Trump's palace. So there was a war going on with Caesar Palace and not letting him use that name. But I don't know, sometimes I wonder if they just do this because he didn't go to court with it, he let go of it, if he just does it just to put the symbolism into the news feed. Here's that famous picture of Trump in the white suit and bare feet on the swan, which is Cygnus, which is the cross of Jesus Christ. This picture is really hard to find on the internet, and now it's not easy to find. But I found out where this was taken. It was at Mar-a-Lago. There it is. There's the fountain. There's two swans. So this is an old photo that I found. I guess when the previous owners had it, there was some of these old photos. So there he sat on that swan and took that picture. So I have an amazing subscriber, Binary Bill, who leaves these awesome comments sometimes. They're long, but I want you to understand what he's saying here. This is all tying into Moby Dick and also John Dee, and Francis Bacon. So he's saying here, Liberty and the Roman goddess are holding the sacred acacia, which is the plant. Okay, so I know when George Washington, he also held this plant. It's to do with ascension, and I can go into that another time. But the Moby Dick part, the Moby Dick story is symbolic allegory transition into the Aquarian age. As you probably know, William Shakespeare was a pseudonym created by the three fathers of the Rosicrucianism. So Dr. John Dee, Francis Bacon, and Edward de Vere. The wisdom of the world and its ages fused into poetic allegory and philosophical theater. The dawning of Aquarian age has been written about in myth and stories for a very long time, and the Italian Renaissance saw a huge revival of artworks, symbolism depicted in various clever ways. So they're always showing us the story, and yeah, it has been done for a very long time, but I think it's to go into our psyche. So he's saying here also, it relates to the spear, and then the tempest is part of the story of the transitional age. The character Caliban was originally a sea demon, and with early paintings depicting him with the same face as the old depiction of Situs. The Caliban declares, "The I am the footlicker," which is the key to understanding who or what he is. So the story of the speared whale, while Aries, the ram, the lamb of the world, the I am, and will of the creator, knows the right moment to lay down, allowing Perseus to launch the spear of tree I am at the sea monster. The monster, or kraken. Kraken, they were using kraken a while ago, they dropped the kraken or whatever. It was like, it's really the sea monster. They're just using the same words even. As it is Situs, the whale, who has held humanity in the age of Pisces, right? Because right at the bottom of Pisces is where the whale is, the feet of the fish of Pisces. The fish species are soul. The twin souls of Pisces are unable to ascend as the monster ties them to the back and kind of a fungal bond. So Perseus throws the spear and penetrates the head of Situs. On killing the whale, the bond is severed and the two souls can ascend from the deep, dark base of the bottom of the sea to the higher waters of heavenly consciousness. Even though allegorically the event is literal, the magnetic shift within the constellation is the direct catalyst for the additional degree in precession, and the sun's magnetic field is corrected. The only constellation that remains magnetically harmonic is Aquarius, and the sun cannot enter a field of perfection without having the field of perfection too. Several of the stories and myths I have read have even been told to me by indigenous people, say that it is when the gates of Aquarius opens, the sun leaves the house that has been trapped in for so long and enters the new house of the sun. So this is interesting. It's like Aquarius is like really the phoenix. So this is what we have to wait for these gates to open. But, I'm starting to see like Neptune is a big part of this because it has to do with the Aquarian age, because it's to do with the sea, with the water. It's like aqua, right? So Neptune is a big part of this. He is the god of Atlantis. And Atlantis, it's like that's the age we're going into. The Aquarius age is the Atlantic or Atlantis age. That's where we're going. We're going back to Atlantis. And then he mentions here about John Dee as most known signs his name as 007. This also integrates into the story. 007 is a reference to the 007 double bonding agent joining the two hydrogen to oxygen, the glue that allows the water molecule to exist. and therefore life as we know it. And so the two souls, hydrogen, release from the oxygen at the breathing blowhole where the navel seal is of the whale. And the fire of the soul is ignited as they unify through ascending through the gradients of the water. James Bond, secret double agent 007, and Q, the secret weapon guy, and also QAnon, is based on the Q ships of the Navy World War I, battleships made to look like basic fishing trawlers, etc. Anonymous to the point they are ignored by the enemy and secretly are able to unleash power and destroy the enemy. So that's crazy. So anyhow, it's amazing because it all ties into 007. And it's I got more to tell you guys, and I know it just goes on, but it all connects. So it's like and it all comes to me kind of in one lump. So I have to kind of bring it to you in one big crazy amount of information. Sorry for information overload. Now, Bobby Simpson is a gematria guy, YouTuber, that has a gematria channel, but his mind is amazing because he understands the cycles of the planets. So he says here, Venus and Earth have an orbital resonance ratio of 13 to 8. Those are Fibonacci numbers, so their ratio approximates 5, which is golden ratio, right? 13 divided by 8 is 1.625, which is 007 away from 5 at 1.618. So bang on. It's all to do with sound frequency, because that's what Fibonacci numbers are. It's all to do with the music of the spheres, the planets, and it's all to do with the planets representing the math of the frequency. Okay, so the planets have frequency, but the math of the cycles have frequency. Well, a mathematical equation that matches the frequency of the Fibonacci numbers. So phi plus this Fibonacci sequence between Venus and Earth is 007. That's where they get the 007 from. So here's John Dee's signature, supposedly looking like 007. But honestly, when I look at his signature, all I see is the 8, the big Mobius strip. That's all I see. And this is crazy funny. Phi Island versus James Bond Island. They've taken Phi, like that's the name of the island, and they've changed it to James Bond. So that's a total, proof that it's related to Phi. Now, Dr. No was the first James Bond movie in 1962. It was a low-budget film. Wasn't super popular, but then they tried to make it more popular over time, and eventually caught on. The names kill me though. Ursula, which is the Little Mermaid, the storm, Ursula. Ursula Andress, then we have somebody Wiseman, and then Lord. So it's like and dress Wiseman Lord. And I just oh my God, it's like, how can that be? But that's what it is. And this is where the iconic symbolism, supposedly through a gun barrel. But, I see this as a wormhole. This is just it's a wormhole. It's like golden ratio wormhole. So the James Bond, there was a soundtrack called Underneath the Mango Tree with Honey Rider. This is a scene with Ursula, and her name was Honey Rider. Okay, so you got the honey, milk and the honey. But anyhow, this is to do with a tree. Here's part of the lyrics to the song. Me, honey, and me can watch for the moon underneath the mango tree. Underneath the moonlit sky, me, honey, and I can sit hand in hand underneath the moonlit sky. Me, honey, and I can make fairyland. Okay, so it's like you get to go to the other land underneath this tree if it's by the moonlight. So even at the end of the song, they say, and 9 little children in a row. So it's like the sacred number 9 again for ascension. So part of the plot in the movie is funny. So Dr. Julius, so we have like Julius Caesar, number 007, asks local fisherman Coral to take him there under the cover of darkness. However, Coral is reluctant to do so, stating that there's a dragon on the island. Despite his initial reluctance, he agrees to take Bond to Crab Key, which is like the moon key, right? Like, we're the monkey, we're the moon key. After inadvertently alerting the Doctor's security forces to his presence on the island, fellow intruder Honey Rider guides them to the hiding place upstream. Arriving at the hiding spot, they agree to take turns watching out for the dragon, which Honey claims to have seen. When Coral spots tracks, Bond insists they follow them to the dragon. The trio follows the tracks until nightfall. Eventually, they come across the barren swamp where they are spotted by the dragon, an armored vehicle painted with teeth and armored with a flamethrower. As it approaches them, Bond and Coral attempt to shoot out its tires and lights. They fall, and Coral is torched to death. Bond and Honey are apprehended by the tank crew and taken to the compound. So this tank, okay, this dragon tank, it's like, it's the Azor dragon, okay? It's like the Azor dragon comes, and one gets like torched to death, and the other one gets the honey, right? It's the Honey Rider. It's the same story. It's always the same freaking story. So this was the low budget tank, you know, look what it looked like. And of course there's a little green man up in the top of it, okay? Because it's the Azor dragon. It's the green dragon, which is really Scorpio's tail. Okay, it goes from Virgo in Chinese astrology. I've explained this before. It goes all the way from Virgo, goes through Libra, into Scorpio, right to the Golden Gate. It's all the tail of the dragon. And this is the dragon that's mentioned also in the Bible. But here it is also, they're using the 007 dragon in these video games for kids. And they have a lot of symbolism in these video games. It's nuts. All the ancient mythologies all in these games. So in 2017, when the eclipse went across the United States, crossing the Silver Gate at St. Louis, making the big X, that's going to happen in 2024. The 2017 one was the year of the fire rooster. Now remember, the Abrax is the rooster, right? He's like we call like really the devil, right? It's actually Capricorn. So then 2024 is the year of the dragon. Okay, so we've got the rooster and the dragon. And this again also crosses at St. Louis, Silver Gate. The silver arch represents the silver gate in the sky, which is between the horns of Taurus, Isis's gate. I don't believe it's the gate for freedom, like true freedom. I think the Golden Gate represents the true freedom because you have to go to the Golden Gate to fight the dragon. So this is the second eclipse going through, and it's really weird because there's no square lines and hardly any sextile lines. It's like totally empty because the whole wheel is just one big bundle, all in Pisces again, just like when Jesus' birthday, right? It's exactly the same thing, except now Pluto's like on like a right degree angle, right on the descending sign, instead of being across from the bundle. So yeah, I just found this amazing. To me, it just looked like a big giant hole right in the middle of the wheel. But you can see that Jupiter and Uranus are both in Aries. They're not quite in conjunction yet. They're almost in conjunction. So this is where it's repeating what's happened at Jesus' birthday. This is what I'm saying. It's like it's the same wheel. It's the same, like the planets are in the same placement, almost exactly the same. There you can see the eclipse, the sun, and there's like a little black dot, but it's all in Pisces, and Mercury's there as well. Venus is on the tail of the whale. There you can see Pisces attached to the whale hole of the whale, right? And the two lines making a V. And then the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction right in Aries, which is heaven, Jesus in the crown of the I Am, the Lamb of God, Aries. 2024 is the year of the dragon. The dragon ranks the 5th place in Chinese zodiac. It symbolizes the rights, wealth, and the God of heaven in the folks. So this is what I'm saying. I think, this is an important time in the spring of 2024. I do think 2023 in the fall all ties into the Osiris festival and the taking down of the Lion King. That I'm convinced of. That's the time that they will most likely do it, and it matches the 60th Jubilee to JFK. But I'm just starting to wonder, like, after that happens, the whole world has to go into shock and mourning and anger and all that, and we have to process through that. And then I'm assuming this second eclipse is going to go through, meaning heaven, because they have the Olympic symbol for 2024 Olympics in Paris as the Jupiter, alchemic symbol. So because they have that, it has to do with Jupiter. And now that I realize that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction mirrors Jesus's birthday, that's why it's so important. That's why that year is so important. So, and it creates the second, eclipse that makes the X, which the X is really important as well. So, is it more that the spring of 2024 is ascension time, because it still gives us in the time frame of all the red blood moons with tribulation, which ends up being the return of Jesus, is more in 2026 for the souls that aren't, able to make it on their own. So here it's stating that the New Year day is Saturday, February 10th, 2024. The male green wood dragon. This is what it is for that year. The cycle of the purple-white flying stars is the period from 2004 to 2023, and the 8 white Earth, 3 emerald stars, flies into the center palace of the 9th star diagram in 2024. So the fact it's number 9 and the 3 emeralds, like, you guys know the importance of number 9. And all these 24s and 24s, it's really Jupiter. That's what it's saying. It's Jupiter. It's Jesus. This is number 24. This is what it represents. Now, the green dragon ties to Freemasonry. Okay, there's a Green Dragon Tavern, a popular meeting place for both Freemasons and the Sons of Liberty. It was demolished in 1832. It was also the Boston Tea Party was planned there by Paul Revere, a Mason, who sent from there to Lexington on his famous ride. So this is a really famous location in Boston, and it's called the Green Dragon Tavern. Now, they knew when this event was going to happen. Okay, they knew the eclipse, they knew the sky, they knew the symbolism of the sky, and everything is created to this time. And so the fact that they have a Green Dragon Tavern, and it all ties back to Wales. But in the Boston Tavern, they even had a dragon, a copper dragon, was in the building, had three floors into the back and two in the front, greeting visitors, was a copper dragon mounted on an iron crane. Copper is ascension, right? It's like you need the copper in your body also to take on the energies. So yeah, it's really, really crazy. So anyhow, I want to show you what in Wales, the original Green Dragon Tavern. So it was located in Wales, serving a pub in the Over Manal. And in 1996, the agricultural dig evaluation carried out behind the inn produced medieval finds, such as cooking utensils and clay pipes. The Green Dragon faces one of the entrances to the medieval Manaw Bridge and the Church of St. Thomas the Martyr. The pub currently faces the traffic island that includes a restored cross. So the church was built in 1180 and has an unusual bowl design because it's like an archway, the entrance. You can see here the cross outside of it. And this is the archway going in. And then you can see the archway inside with the stained glass. And they have a St. Thomas. They also have St. Nicholas there. But it's kind of weird because it doesn't look like a cross. It looks like a sigillaria tree. The original tree on the planet, the obelisk, Sigillaria Day. They have these fonts up here, these in the church as well. One of them is octagonal. Now, fonts are tied into the rising of Christ loosing the bondage of death and receives the dead from the graves. It's a ritual that's done like a baptism on these pedestals. This one is really weird, and they mention that it's very different. So the face on there, I'm not sure if that's referencing the moon or what it is, but I find it's very unusual. Now, the River Manaw is a really famous river, and this was a big battleground for the Welsh and the British. And, I guess it was to get across this river. And they created this big bridge. This is a really medieval bridge, and it has this beautiful look to it, and this big tower on it. And this is right across from, the entrance of the bridge is where the church is, and this Green Dragon Tavern. So I think they were, in there a lot trying to figure out their freedom to fight the British. And this is why this symbolism went over to Boston with the founding of the United States, because the Welsh, that most of them were the founding fathers of the United States, were trying to get away from the British. So remember I mentioned in my last video, it all ties into Tolkien and the Lord of the Ring. And the Lord of the Ring has to do with if you have the ring, you can disappear from this realm. And this all ties into Coca-Cola and everything. I mentioned that in my last video. But then it also now links, like in the actual Lord of the Rings, I didn't know this, there was like a green dragon inn that they had made, and it was a part of the movie. The midway point of the 7 years of tribulation between these blood moons is February 12th, 2023. So I wanted to check this out, what's happening in Stellarium at this time. And the moon is on Shambhala star at the bottom of Virgo's skirt. And Osiris is on Parima, like that's the hero. And that moon placement on April 22nd is close to Parima again. This is April 22nd, 2024. So I want to check out the wheel for April 22nd, and then we have the bucket again, or the bundle. This is called actually a bucket because there's a star, like a planet, across from the bundle. This is called a bucket placement in your chart. And there's this huge grouping again with this just one straight squaring line, which is really intense to all these planets that are in Pisces again. And the opposing planet is the moon. And this is like April 22nd, and April 8th was when the eclipse happened. Okay, so it's just a couple of weeks after. And the reason this time is so important is because we now have another Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happening around April 21st, 22nd, just a few weeks after the big eclipse. And this is exactly the same occurrence that happened on Jesus' birthday. So 2 days later, on the Wednesday, on April 24th, 2024, we have a full moon. Now they're important, right? The black moons are important and the full moons are important. Now this is the chart for April 24th. Now we don't have such a big giant square line to the moon. The moon's now shifted down to Shambhala, but it is directly going across to the sun. Now, if you look at the little notches where the sun is, because it's right across on this red line from the moon, from the fourth house of home, where Shambhala is, across to the sun in the spiritual house of the ninth house. Okay, so that's a really cool placement directly across, and then we still are in Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. So Ivanka Trump did a tweet back in February 2nd, so 2-2 on the 2-2. So she did a palindrome number. And then she says, likely the only such palindrome we'll experience in our lifetime, which isn't true because 2024, depending how you write the month and the date, ends up being a palindrome number with all these 2 4s, right? So if you actually wrote it the 24th of April, it would be 244 and then 224. So that's, like a palindrome number. So there's the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Aries with the sun right on the head of Citus, which is like the hand of God in Aries, the Lamb of God, I am. Persephone, who wants to lead you to the inner world, is in Scorpio, which is the dragon. So she's on the green dragon. Now, if you remember the Metropolis movie, that Venus, like Helle, she was riding like a dragon. So that's who it is. I thought it was Venus, but no, it's Persephone. Neptune is on the tail of the whale. There he is. And if you look, Pegasus is back. He's got the fish on it and then Neptune on it. So it's like he's riding his horse, right? Or you could say Schleppner's, the Citus is the horse. And then Mars is there. So there's war, happening. The storm god has the war planet with him. And Mnemosyne, to return your memory, is with Regulus, the crown. So this, I think, is Ascension Day. This is really making sense to me now, with the other day being more tying in with Trump in 2023. Him ascending in a way. But for us, I think it's more this date because it just ties in so perfectly to the Green Dragon pub, and they did all that for Ascension. That's what they did all that symbolism for. So I could go into more about things that happened on the date, but I'm going to cut this off now because it's getting really long. And the Halley Comet, the astronomer Halley that discovered the Halley Comet, he had a fascination with the hollow earth theory, and he had, done all these compasses and figure out that we really are living in a hollow earth. So, this is like the target symbol for the store Target. So I think it really is, that's where Shambhala is, that's where heaven is. It's a hollow earth. I think, this information is being hidden from us. They even have Shambhala there, or Agatha. The names are all there. These are smart astronomers. These are smart people. Why would they think this is like, it's all like make-believe, and they're just making it up? They obviously had science behind them, and they understood the history of the stars and what ancient tribes were telling people. But then this was all buried, right? They just don't want us to know that heaven is inward our body and inward to earth. Maybe it's just like in a way, it's just another realm that we're going to be able to perceive, that the energies from there are coming to us. So who knows? I'm not sure how it's all going to work, but all I know is the symbolism is there everywhere. Disney was a Mason, and he had an artist working for him called Jim Warren. Now, Jim Warren, you got to go look at his paintings because they're all esoteric to some degree. Now, when I went back and tried to figure out the Chinese year for Jesus's birthday in 6 BC, it's actually a tiger wood year. Can you believe this? Look what he's wearing. The green, wood is green, right? And it's the green dragon. This artist, Jim Warren, made this Tiger Woods painting. Okay, he also has another one which is Tiger Woods, golfing. But, so he has two of them. So there you go. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Tiger Woods is really good friends with Trump. And, this is a joke. Okay, this is a joke. Tiger Woods is representing the year of Jesus's birth. Okay, here's his other painting. And that's Tiger Woods. Okay, but I like the other one better with the green, right? Because it's like really, that's the symbolism of the green Tiger Woods year. So, anyhow, this is all very entertaining for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So if Jesus's birthday is the Tiger Wood year, that's why Tiger always wins the green jacket at the Augusta Open. And the dragon year is the second eclipse going through the United States, making the big giant X across the United States. And the tiger and the dragon have this ancient symbolic ritual between them in Chinese mythology. So we have the beginning and the end. It's always going back to Chinese astrology because it was the original astrology. And that's what the Freemasons do. They take all religions and they take all symbolism from all around the world and they kind of mesh it all together so that there's a story. But they're there to show us the story, but for us to awaken naturally to it. They're not allowed to come out and tell us. It's not part of the game. So I don't see it as evil. I just see it as this really fascinating giant jigsaw puzzle. And it's just mind-blowing to think that this is all done for us to help us get to freedom. So it's not nefarious, It's just you can see it as nefarious if you want to hold on to this reality and keep it for what it was. But really, isn't that wonderful what we're doing to people on the other side of the world and everything? It's not wonderful. We need a higher consciousness realm to go to have a reward to just being like, oh my God, I saw through all that. It's not right. It isn't the perfect world. It's actually quite nefarious in what we're doing to each other. So anyhow, that's the whole story, and that's what we have to just keep looking at, is just watch the movie. Enjoy the show. You can subscribe, spread far and wide. I do have an Instagram account up. I did put it in the description box, but I forgot to mention that to you guys. I do have a few followers, and I'll start to post a little bit more stuff there all the time, just getting into the swing of it. And I'll just keep plugging away here, and I'm going to start, I keep telling you, I'm going to start my school, and I'm going to get it going, so it's going to come soon. I just have to get my head around it and stop getting downloaded. I'm getting downloaded all the time with this stuff, and it's like, it takes a long time to put this stuff together, so I got to put time into that. So anyhow, I just wanted to thank you guys for, making comments. I love it when you guys make comments. It just inspires me to keep going. And, this is the whole thing about it. Just, enjoying the show. So take care. Signing out. Bliss to you.